Hi everyone, this is Ramanuj here from LawSikho. So we are going to talk today about something which is very important and very fundamental to me. I was basically somebody who studied in essentially in a Bengali medium school, a vernacular medium school. We do not begin to even study English till class 6. Okay, so that was the process. Like in the schools that I studied in, the board made it necessary that you should start studying a second language, which is English, only when you are already in class 6. And so basically, we did not get, like, the level of English was quite low in school, right? So people, when they were finishing their board exams, they most of them could not even write a decent like they made a lot of grammatical. Akhil Krishnan, request you to please stay on mute. So so that was the situation, and we were not expected to be able to write English or forget speaking English. In my environment, nobody spoke English. So for me, it was especially hard to ever speak English because I was just not used to it. There was no place where I had to speak English or had an opportunity to speak in English. So when I graduated and I joined law school, first of all, getting through to the law entrance was quite hard itself because that was the first exam I was taking entirely in English because I was not used to even reading questions and answering them in English. So, but I had to, and then when I went to law school, then almost success definitely depended on me being able to speak and write English flawlessly, because that is something that, if you want to get a job in law firms, they care about that. If you want to do mooting, that's very important that you have to speak in English. If you want to, of course, in most of the law schools, national universities, have entirely English medium education system. So that was also one more challenge, that if I have to score well in class, for that as well I need to uh, write exams in English, study in English, and all books, everything is in English, right? Now, given this scenario, I had to learn English, and I realized that learning English is not one thing. There are different skills within learning English. One is that you have to have a certain kind of vocabulary. You need a good vocabulary to succeed as a lawyer, because uh, lawyers lawyers need specialized language and need to communicate in specialized language very specifically to be an effective lawyer. Uh, Similarly, so vocabulary is very, very important. Similarly, it's important to develop skills for writing. You need to develop skill for speaking English. You need to do public speaking in English. So there are a lot of different skills that are involved, and it will be a mistake to mix them up. And perhaps you cannot learn all of them at the same time. I mean, I'm sure there are people who might have learned all of them at the same time, but for me, I had to learn them one by one. So when I was working on my vocabulary, I was working on my grammar, I was not working on public speaking, for example. That came later. So the first step was that I was going to work on my grammar and my vocabulary, right? And this happened when I was in uh, I was preparing for the law entrance, because I realized that to do well in the law entrance, I need to learn a certain level of English so that I can easily crack it. And a lot of it depended on my vocabulary and knowledge of grammar. Okay, Anubhav Girls has posted something. What I want to take away from this meeting: how to remember new words, how to practice English when you don't have an environment. What are some best books for learning English? How to remember grammar rules? Okay, I'll try to answer those questions. So, but let's continue with our what I was saying. So what happened first is that uh, I had to learn vocabulary, and I had to learn uh, grammar. So these were the two very important things without which I was not going anywhere. Also, I also learned at this time style. Okay, style is something that most people do not understand. It's very important. Style is not, there are some things which is maybe something which may be grammatically correct, but they are bad style of writing. it's not advised that you write in those, like, you don't make those style mistakes. So for example, I'll give you a very small example of style. So for example, if you are writing that I saw one bird when I was standing in my balcony. Okay, this is a sentence. I saw one bird when I was standing in my balcony. Now, when you write one bird, the number one, do you write in numerical? Do you write one in Roman numerical, or do you write one one bird? Okay, what is correct? Now, this is style. That do I write numerical one bird or do I write one bird? And style is very important because, okay, so it may be correct that if you are wrote Roman numeral, there's no grammatical rule as such against it. But people will judge you by it. And that is the thing about language, that if you have good language, then people assume that you are an intelligent person, you are a successful person, you are a polished person. But if your language is not good, people assume that you are dumb, that you are not educated enough, that you are not very attentive, maybe that you are not very sharp. So all these assumptions come when your language is not good, which is why for a lawyer it's extremely critical to be good with their language, right? Okay, so how do you start? Okay, how do you start? For me, it was very clear that for me to do well, I have to start with vocabulary. That seemed like also an easy thing to start learning, right? Vocabulary is simple. You just have words, you have to remember the words and you're done. Like the most simple, easiest thing that you can begin your English journey with is vocabulary. Okay. So there are two ways I learn vocabulary. So most effective way to learn English well is to read books. Okay. How I learned is that, first time I read an English book, I remember I was in class 8, okay, class 8, and I got myself a Harry Potter book, Harry Potter and Goblet of Fire. This was a fat book. At that time, it seemed very fat to me. It had 500, 600 pages, and I had to read this 500, 600 pages. And when I started reading, I remember I bought the book and I came in the evening, and for 3-4 hours, I read straight. Like I didn't do anything else. I just read that book. But you know how many pages I read? I read only one chapter, 30 pages. That's it. I could read one chapter, 30 pages in like 3-4 hours because it was very difficult for me to understand whatever I was reading because a lot of words were not familiar at all. And I could understand some of the sentences. So I'm guessing many of you don't have that problem. When you read a book, you are not stumbling on every sentence essentially, right? So that's fine, no problem. What you do is that you start reading books nonetheless. And when you start reading a lot of books, you will come across a lot of words. Okay. So when I read that Harry Potter book, I finished. It took me like 1 or 2 weeks to read. I spent a lot of time reading, but luckily I started enjoying the content of the book, the story of the book, and that resulted in me sticking to reading the book. That's why it's important that you read an enjoyable book, because I was enjoying the story. I read it, and not only I read it once, I read it twice, thrice, 4 times, 5 times, and I read it total 30 times. Single book, okay, over a period of time, over a period of 1 year or so. I read the book 30 times. Why did I read it 30 times? Because every time I used to read, I will get some new word, new sentence that I could not understand earlier, and I could get a different part of the story. A part of the story I did not understand before, suddenly I could understand, and because of that I kept reading it, and reading it again and again was rewarding. It was not a boring experience for me to read the same book again and again, because I was getting new information about the story, and I liked it more for that reason. And I read that is a book that is worth reading so many times. Now, what happened after that is, when I read the same word multiple times, I'll give you an example. A very simple verb, yell, Y-E-L-L, yell. Okay, what does yell mean? Yelling means what? Anybody can respond? Shout at someone. So Anubhav is saying that yelling means shouting at someone. Sure. So it is a kind of shouting. Now, when I read it for the first time, I could not understand what yell meant. But I read it again and again. When I read it in 3 places, 4 places, 5 places, 10 places, I had a sense when the first time I read it that maybe it means shouting or maybe something else. I couldn't understand, not for sure. Then when I read it at different places and I saw the same word in multiple contexts, then I could understand that okay, this is what yelling means. Okay, and that was very beneficial. That is how I learned a lot of words. For example, green, Grin, green. What does green means? Okay, it is written that Harry was grinning or something. Multiple places I read green. And then I realized that, oh, Grin, green, a word I never knew before, means some kind of smiling or laughing or whatever. Then I realized, no, it's not laughing. It is a silent smile, right? It's a smile. And I had taken a decision that time that, I am not going to read the dictionary, because every time I opened the dictionary to understand the word of the meaning of a word, my flow was broken. I could not understand the story anymore. So I stopped reading. So many people say, oh, sit with the dictionary and keep checking the dictionary. You don't need a dictionary now anymore. You can Google the word to understand the meaning, which is okay. If you can do that, do it. But in my experience, I did not do that. I just kept reading the same word in multiple places, and eventually I understood the meaning of it. And that was one very important part of me starting to learn new vocabulary. And that is also how I learned a lot of grammatical structures, because when you are reading the same sentence again and again, that structure of that sentence goes in your head, and you are able to create sentences in the same structure later on. It is as simple as that. The more, and I have seen this later. Now I am learning Spanish. So when I'm learning Spanish, it's the same thing. If I use the same word repeatedly, if I use the same sentence structure repeatedly, then that, even if I read it or if I repeat it, it goes into my head, it goes into my brain, and I can build more sentences in the same structure. Okay, this is how it works. Now, so one part was reading a book multiple times. So this is highly recommend. One thing I want you to take away: how you are going to get better at grammar, how are you going to get better at style, how are you going to get better at vocabulary. The simplest way to do that is to read a book repeatedly. Okay, repeatedly, and notice that every time you are reading it again, you are learning new words. That is very important. Okay, and you will also be automatically picking up, your brain will automatically be picking up the sentence structures, right? When we learned our mother tongue, let's say for some people it's Hindi, for me it was Bengali, for some people it may be Telugu or Tamil or whatever. When you learn that language, how did you learn? You learned it by repetition. You came across the same sentences, same words repeatedly again and again in your environment, in your people who are speaking those things. You are watching movies, you are listening to songs. Is as a kid, you got exposed to the same language structure again and again. And that's why you learned it without effort. Your brain just picked up. Your brain has the ability to pick up a language if it is exposed to it regularly. So how do you expose yourself regularly? You expose yourself regularly to any language by repeatedly reading the same thing. Okay, reading books repeatedly will be great. So if you can make time every day for 1 hour or 2 hours to read a book, that is the best way to learn English. And I know most people do not do this. Most people, I don't know why somebody is making us listening to music. This is Karan Shah. Please do not unmute yourself unless you have a specific need to speak, so that your sound doesn't come to all the other attendees. Thank you. So exposing yourself repeatedly to that. So that is number one. Now what I did is that I exposed myself initially by reading books, and that did really good. Achha, now that is one thing. Now next thing is that, was that alone enough? No, I also separately studied grammar and I separately studied vocabulary. It really helped that I read these books and I had this reading habit. By the way, recently Shashi Tharoor spoke about it, and Shashi Tharoor also said the same thing. He was asked that, what about vocabulary? Like, how do I learn new words all the time? And he said that, you don't learn words. you read a lot. He as a kid had a reading habit. He read a lot of books, and he said he read the same word multiple times. Exactly what I said. He said he read the same word multiple times in multiple places, and that is how he picked up such a phenomenal vocabulary by reading a lot. I'm sure he read more than I did. And he also said something very interesting. He said, I have the kind of mind that I have today is because I read so much. Because when you read so much, you are not only exposing yourself to language, you are exposing yourself to ideas, you are exposing yourself to logic, you are exposing yourself to literature, science, a lot of different things, which are like, the best of humanity, really, right? So you exposing yourself to that kind of good content. Okay, no, don't just read like stupid bad novels, not like Chetan Bhagat novels. A lot of people read a lot, but they just read novels which are romantic or has a lot of sexuality in it or whatever, like, because they get that kind of, it's the same reason why people watch movies, because of drama and entertainment. But that's not the best use of your reading time. If you want a sharp mind, if you want to have a great great knowledge, and like want to become really brilliant, reading books is the easiest thing. You read a lot of books, you'll become very smart, very brilliant. You will stand out in your environment. Most people never read this book. This is the most amazing one. I might read it. Otherwise, I always read non-fiction because I learn more from non-fiction. I get more, like, the return on investment on my reading time is much better when I read non-fiction. Okay, this is how I recommend that you begin your English learning journey. But the second part, which is also important, is that this happened when I was giving the entrance exams. I realized that I need to learn certain kind of vocabulary. So I learned vocabulary. So what I did is I used to read again. I used to read newspaper, The Hindu, and it is known to have a good vocabulary. So I used to underline the words that I did not understand while I was reading. And then those words I wrote down in my notebook, looked up on the dictionary later on. Like when I am reading, I did not look up the dictionary. When I was reading, I only underlined. And this is important, by the way. If you don't do it this way, you will not succeed. You have to, while reading, you have to underline. That time you don't do anything else. You read, underline, done. Next step, take the words, write them down in a notebook. Write all of them down on a notebook. So there may be 20, 30 words in a day that you read from the newspaper. I used to write it down on a notebook. When I wrote it down on a notebook, then I will open my dictionary and I will look up those words, and I will not write the meaning of the word. Now, see, this is very important. Don't write down the meaning of the word that is written in the dictionary. Never. Okay? You read the meaning from the dictionary, and then you create a sentence with that word. Okay, so the new word you just learned, you create a sentence with that word. What sentence? It cannot be an ordinary sentence. It has to be something, a memorable sentence. Okay, either it has to be something that happened in your life. So for example, let's say a word. Okay, astonishing. Astonishing is a word. Okay, it means like a very high level of surprising. Okay, like I am completely surprised, baffled, mind blown. Okay, astonishing. I am astonished. I am astonished that how can you be so stupid? I am astonished that how can our economy, which was doing so well 5 years back, is now in such bad shape. I am astonished that there was a time when there was no electricity and people still, how did they live? I'm astonished. Now, this is these are some of the uses, like usage of the word. I'm astonished that there is this Swami Nityananda who says crazy things about physics and chemistry, and still people follow him and believe in him. Okay, now I am astonished. Now this is astonished word, usage of the word astonished or astonishing. Now when you are able to use the word like this in different contexts in your life about different things you know in your life or you are doing in your life, then you have learned the word. Okay. So what you do is that once you learn the meaning of the word, you create at least one sentence from your life. So for example, let's say Arjun says that I am astonished that it is so easy to get an internship if you build a good network, because Arjun built a network and he got advice. He came and networked with me in when I was there in Arjun is in the class. So when I was in Kochi, he drove 80 kilometers, came and met me and said that, sir, what do I do? I gave him some advice. He implemented it, and very soon he had an internship with a fintech startup. Okay. Now, what happens is that Arjun can say that I was astonished that it was so easy to get an internship at a fintech startup. This is an example that Arjun can use from his own life. Similarly, you can use it from your own life. Say, Anubhav can say that I am astonished that it is so important to be to help other people. Can say, I mean, I don't know, I'm just making it up, but I'm astonished that it is so important to help other people. It benefits me so much. He's astonished by that. Ho sakta hai. Now, this is an example. So you have to think of and then write down that sentence. The act of writing it down activates certain part of your brain. In reality, all the things I listed, I never really went back and checked much. But the fact of writing down activates a different part of your brain and you remember better. That word you learn better. Okay. So come up with a sentence from your life. In the middle, I started coming up with funny sentences, really funny sentences. Okay, that time I wanted to be funny, and making funny sentences helped me to remember the word. So when I would look at a word again and I could not remember the meaning, I could remember the sentence in which I used it, and then I would be able to get back to the meaning. I could remember the meaning again. Karan Chai saying, while reading, we should not look at dictionary for the meaning of a particular word. No, Karan, while reading, you should not look at anything because it interrupts your two bad things happen when you look at a dictionary while reading. Number one, your flow of reading is broken. So you're not getting any pleasure out of reading. Even if you cannot understand the meaning, guess the meaning, you have a guess, you have a sense, and then move on, keep reading. You'll eventually figure out what the meaning is. The other thing is that if you make a list of words and then you see them one by one from the dictionary, then it will be faster to look them up. It will be, and then you can create sentences and all these things, right? So you learn the word we get is that when you are reading, every time you come across a new word, go look it up. It is a bad advice, outdated advice, and that is why is it outdated? Because it breaks your pattern, it breaks your flow. You cannot create a reading habit if you are not enjoying your reading, and if you have to stop at every word and go read it. That is why I was not learning to read. The reason I learned English well was because I read Harry Potter, and it was such an interesting story that I read the whole thing even if I could not understand half of it. The rest half of it that I could understand was so engrossing and so enjoyable that I kept reading. If I got bored of looking up dictionary and I stopped reading, I made it a boring exercise, I made it a terribly difficult exercise to carry out, then I will not finish reading. Then I will not learn those words. Okay? So that's what my advice is. And when you are reading newspaper also, the other thing is that apart from not making it boring, is that you need to practice. You need to practice this intuition, developing the intuition that what could this word mean. Even if you don't know the word, you're guessing and you're reading it in different contexts. As you're reading the same word in different contexts, you start understanding the whole range of meaning that word can take. That will not happen if you keep looking at the dictionary. Anubhav Garg wants to come online. Please, Anubhav, ask.
Hello? Hello? Am I audible? Hello?
You
Hello.
are. Can you please speak?
Yeah. So my doubt is, you said that we should not look every word into the dictionary when we come across a new word. So how, and because that breaks our flow and um, deteriorates our enjoyment in reading. So how am I supposed to enjoy the reading if I don't know what the sentence is saying because I don't know the word? And
Your
uh,
brain is very smart. If you keep reading, you will be able to understand the overall thing.
hmm, so
Even if you don't understand one sentence or one word somewhere, there are many words you will understand. Most of it you will understand. At least 50% you will understand, right?
okay, and that is enough to uh, uh,
That is enough to keep you reading. And you
yeah, keep reading enjoyable.
and when you see the same words again and again in multiple places, that's why I said you read the same book again. So next time you read it, the same book or the same text, same article, ideally same book, um, then you will get more of the story. That time you read fiction, by the way. You for this exercise you don't read non-fiction. For this you read very interesting, very enjoyable fiction. Okay, like Harry Potter.
Okay, that clears my doubt. It's an experimenting.
So
We can,
every
yeah.
time you read it, you read new words. Okay, and you will get new part of the story. So then now now let's move on to the next very important thing. We have probably another half an hour. Very important part. It is one thing to learn. Okay, grammar. I forgot. Sorry, vocabulary I've talked about. So vocabulary you practice like this separately. Okay, but apart from that, you have to practice grammar. Grammar is actually very easy to learn. Okay, very easy to learn. Why? Because one is that there are grammar books where you can go and practice. So I never cared too much about the rules. I read the rules of the grammar book, but I quickly moved on to the part where there is a practice exercise. All the grammar books are practice sentences. So I will go and practice them, and then there is the answer key, and I check if my answers are correct. Okay, because you get the grammar rules you'll never remember, but you practice the grammar rules by solving the exercises that is given at the end of the chapter. You will remember that. People are able to remember by example. People are able to remember examples by practicing them repeatedly. Okay, you will not remember, much easier to remember by practicing the exercises. Okay, now to make sense of the exercise, when you read the rule back again, it will make sense. So that is something that all of us need to do. You must take one grammar book once in your life and just finish it. Just finish it as soon as possible. Okay, I have done that, and it really helped. Really helped to clear up my grammar. And then also I kept making grammatical mistakes for many years. And what is important to catch yourself every time you make a grammatical mistake. Maybe somebody else points out. There are softwares out there which point out grammatical mistakes. Okay, there are softwares like Grammarly, which you have to pay for to get a good service. Nothing is free in the world. But yeah, that is one very good way of getting good at grammar. Or you have to have somebody who corrects your grammar, whose grammar is good. You can tell them, you write and you give it to them and they correct it for you repeatedly. And that is how you learn good English. Can you suggest a good grammar book? And Martin is always a grammar book. I have practiced from Ray and Martin. But what I did, okay, I'll tell you something. Okay, you should. This is something that really worked for me. I found a list of common grammatical mistakes. Okay, you go online, you will find lists of common grammatical mistakes. and you make sure that those mistakes you don't make. This is a way to hack your speed in grammar. So let me show you, like, share my screen with you, and I'm going to find some exercises which shows us quick ways to improve our grammar. Okay, let's take a look. This was a breakthrough for me, because whatever common mistakes do not make them, then you will see your grammar has drastically improved immediately. Okay, you don't have to actually finish a grammar book to be good at grammar. That's actually a very tiresome way of learning grammar. Much better is this. You see this? I have visited Niagara Falls last weekend. Okay, right? Is I visited Niagara Falls last weekend. Right? So there you have this whole list over here. These are some easy ways to learn the usual mistakes. Similarly, you have it here. Okay, so you have an exercise here. This exercise is for intermediate level students. Each of the below 20 sentence has a mistake. Rewrite the sentence without the mistake and then click on A to practice, right? Okay. This is a different way to learn grammar, and it's an excellent way to learn grammar. But even then, I'm guessing you will keep making a lot of mistakes in grammar, and you you keep correcting them and you keep learning not to make them again. That's one of the most powerful ways I know. The name of some grammar books, Rain and Martin, is good enough. I have never used any other grammar book in my life, really. But I have used a book of style. There is something called a book of style, which is very important. But where I really learned a lot of my English grammar and my English uh, style is from a copywriting book. Okay, there are textbooks for copywriting. Now, do you know what is copywriting, guys? Who knows what is copywriting? Copywriting is a massive industry, by the way. Copywriting is basically, this is related to advertising. There's an advertising industry, you know, right? So in the advertising industry, of course, the language has to be very correct, because imagine you are writing a newspaper ad or you're writing a marketing article and that has errors, that has grammatical mistakes, that has something completely unacceptable. So, and these ad agencies charge a lot of money from their clients, right? Big MNCs are hiring advertising agencies to do this. So there are these people called copywriters, COPY writers, copywriters. Okay. Similarly, there are copy editors in the journalism industry. There are copy editors. Okay. Now, copywriter, and in that, one of the most critical things is grammar and style. Okay. So they have the best books. I find the books for learning English grammar are very hard to read, but they're really amazing copywriting books. Okay. So I read from a copywriting book when I was in school. Okay, I just read a book on copywriting, textbook of copywriting. I just read it cover to cover, front to back, just finished it. I just sat myself down and finished it. And this is one habit for learning is very important, that you pick up a book. If you pick up Rain and Martin, your goal is not to read through all the rules only, but to solve the exercises. Just solve all the exercises. I did the same with the copywriting book. I solved all the exercises and I read it like a storybook from beginning to end. Why? Because that's how you can learn faster. And I did that. That's highly recommended for all of you. I don't remember the book I actually used for copywriting. Like, what book was it? I just got something from from the British Council Library, where I used to find my books to read. Now that's important, right? Now we're 15 minutes left. I need to jump into the speaking part. How did I learn to speak? So despite doing all this, my English vocabulary got better. My written English got really good, and I cracked the law entrance very well. I was able to answer all the vocabulary questions. I got really good at that. But when I joined law school, I had terrible difficulty in speaking English because I did not have any uh, habit of speaking English. I did not learn how to speak English. So I told you in English, all of the things you have to learn separately. So I learned vocabulary, I learned grammar, and then I went on and learned speaking finally. And how did that happen? So initial 1 year, I really struggled. Okay, I had a good knowledge of, I could read, I could understand, but I could not speak. It was really, really difficult situation for me. I was not able to moot. I was not able to debate. I was nothing. Like, it seemed like most of law schools, great opportunities are shut to me because I cannot speak good English. So what do I do about that? Next thing I did was I took some movies. Okay, I started watching English movies. The idea first, I stopped speaking anything else. Like, I immersed myself in speaking English. In college, if people spoke to me in Hindi or Bengali, I will reply back in English because I made a rule for myself that I will not speak in anything other than English. Okay, and people made fun of me, whatever. Some of the Bengali friends were really pissed off, but I said that, sorry, please help me out here. I need to speak in English only, and by speaking English all the time, that's how I'm going to learn. So I read about this theory that if you immerse your brain into a language and you force your brain to interact only in that language, then you learn faster. And I used to speak really as I caught myself speaking the wrong thing, I will stop and I will correct myself in mid sentence. Okay, I still do it. You might have noticed. I will say something wrong and I'll stop myself and I'll correct it. And that was a very good habit. That really helped. But what really breakthrough came to me, really breakthrough, like when I really started progress, really happening really fast, was when I started watching these movies. So what I'll do is I'll take a James Bond movie and I'll watch it from beginning till the end. Okay. So I watched all the James Bond movies ever that way. There's some 30, 35 movies. I watched all of them from all of them. And that time I had to go to library because we did not have access to downloading movies and all this Prime and everything. And I used to get movies with subtitles. And then I will watch the whole thing once. Then the second time, I thought that I'll apply the same theory that I applied with my book reading. And how can I do that here? So what I did is that I watched the movie and I rewatched the movie again. And I paused the dialogue every time and I spoke it aloud. So if it's like, if I'm watching, imagine James Bond, and James Bond is saying, say Goldfinger. There's a very famous dialogue. Goldfinger tells James Bond, the villain, "No, Mr. Bond, you die." Okay, so I will pause it and I'll say it like Goldfinger. "No, Mr. Bond, you die." So, and then I'll play it again, and whatever next dialogue is there, I'll pause again and I'll say it myself. Now, what I did is that by saying these sentences again and again, I trained my brain to speak. Okay, I taught myself to speak those sentences, and then I saw a massive improvement in my English speaking because my brain was processing all this information. And our brain is very powerful. You have no idea how powerful your brain is. It's just that we don't use it most of the time. So when I did this, my English speaking went from almost not being able to speak, mumbling and fumbling in every sentence, to coherently speaking. So much that I won moots. Okay, I won, like, once I started doing this, major improvement in speaking. I go and speak well before judges and win moots. And then I got into the international moot team of my college, which was very hard to get in. And then I went and represented my university in Hong Kong. I represented my university in Oxford, represented my university in NLS Bangalore in arbitration. Moot went up to the semi-finals. So from somebody you could not speak, I became a very good speaker. And not only that, even later, like, I was able to take classes in English, speaking English like for hours. Now that happened only because I did these practices. Now remember this, that most people think that learning English is very hard. It requires to go to class. It requires you to go some and do some crazy things. But I'll tell you, in my life, the reason I was able to learn English is because I made it simpler, because I made it really accessible for myself, and I gave it time within my schedule, right? So there was a time when I was in, before the law entrance, I took a drop year, like, so I passed my class 12. In that year, I got into NUJS in the waiting list. I did not join because I thought I will give myself 1 year to learn English. I was clear that English is that much important that better than joining law school that year, I will take a drop year, learn English, and then give law entrances again. Next time, the first time I was in waiting list, and second time I got through NUJS as one of the top, like, top of, I was second topper in the whole country. Okay. Now this was the difference. You give yourself time. So I gave myself 1 year of time to learn English. So I learned vocabulary. I learned this. I'm sure most of you are not in a position in life to just stop everything and do this for 1 year, right? I'm not asking you to do that. I'm just saying that even when I got into NUJS, then I got very busy with the whole thing. I was having to do my academics, and I had my work. I was not only doing academics, I was also working side by side, uh, earning money, all of that. So I didn't have a lot of time. So what I did is that within the time that I had, I made rules for myself to be engaged in their activity. So what kind of I give you an example. I will not speak in any language other than English to anybody. It helped that I was in a hostel. If I was at home, it would be a little more difficult. But okay, not at home, but everywhere else you can speak in English. I did not watch any Hindi movie. I did not watch any Bengali movie. I watched only English movies. I didn't listen to any other music. I didn't listen to any other music. I didn't listen to any other music. That's a different thing. I would only play English music because everything, English, immersed myself in English. Immersion, total immersion in the language. That helps your brain to pick up that language. Okay, the more you expose yourself, so this you can do for yourself, that okay, for 1 year I'm not going to watch any other movie. Every time I can make time, I'll only watch things in English. Everywhere I get a chance, I'll only speak in English. I am only going to listen to English entertainment, English book, everything English, right? That would be a game changer. You do that for 1 year, 2 year, it doesn't happen overnight, but if you do it for a year or 2 years, I assure you, you will see drastic improvements. Second thing is that this, like, you can make simple rule that every day I am going to learn 10 new words, not more, 10 new words. 10 is also too much. You can say I learn 2 new words. That's also enough. If you start, I will learn 2 new words every day. It's a way to get used to the learning phase. And once you do, you can increase it 10, 20, and then you can be rapidly learning a lot. Okay. Once it becomes a habit, it's very easy. Once you have learned 2 words every day for 1 month, you can make it 5, 10, then you'll stick to the habit. It will be easier for you. So start small. The third thing is that read books, watch movies, repeat. Do not read one book only one time. Do not watch one movie only one time. Repeat. Repetition is the key. If you don't repeat, the effect won't happen. Okay. If you repeat, it'll be great. Okay, it's very boring. I understand to watch the movie for the second time, but that's what you think. Once you watch it, it will not be so boring. Trust me, you'll find new things when you watch it again, and you will remember those words and those sentences that you repeatedly watch or repeatedly see, and repeat it. Read it aloud. Repeat the dialogue that they are saying. Say it the way they are saying, and very soon you will be able to speak like that even in your real life. Okay, so this is what it is. Now, any feedback, any suggestions, any questions that I can answer? Anubhav Garg is saying, just wanted to share, if you read about something for 3 hours or two every, I mean, I don't understand, for every day, I mean, what, 3 hours every day for a year, you will become a national expert in that niche. Agreed. If you keep learning, writing, talking about something, you'll become an expert on that. 100%. Okay, Uzair liked the session very much. Thank you. Any questions, guys? What are you going to do? Before you go, what is your takeaway? What are you going to practice now? Type and share with me, quick. What are you going to do differently from today or tomorrow? Not even tomorrow. Start today. Today is Sunday. What are you going to do every day? What habit are you going to build, and what new thing are you going to do in your life so that your English becomes a lot better? Karan Shah, won't look at dictionary while reading. Yeah. So look at dictionary, but make a bunch of words and then look at dictionary, all of them together. Okay. I'm not saying never look at dictionary. I'm saying don't look at dictionary while reading. You can underline the words that you don't know and look at them later together. Uh, Arjun Mohandas, I will start creating sentences when I find a new word. Yeah, make a sentence from your own life or something really funny or whatever. Okay, not just writing down the meaning will not be the best thing. When you are able to create a sentence with that word from your own life that is interesting to remember, you will own that word. Vijay is learning 10 new words daily. Great, Vijay. Okay. Uzair, start practicing grammar with Rain and Martin. Start practicing from online resources, guys. Don't underestimate. Like those, make sure you are learning those mistakes, right? Learn more about mistakes and you'll not make them. Somnitya Basu, obtain text on copywriting, textbook on copywriting. Somnitya, okay. Obtain a textbook on copywriting. There's a book called The Manual of Style, I think. Wait one second, let me find it. Yeah, there's like a famous Chicago Manual of Style. This is for lawyers. Amazon also has a Manual of Style, 12th edition. Anyway, so, you find a modern book on copyright comment. I'm looking for something. There are the elements of style. Yeah, this is a very good book. The elements of style. So I can recommend you strongly this book. Anybody wants to buy this book on copywriting, not for copywriting, but for doing writing it very well. I'm writing it down here. The elements of style. Okay, this is a very highly recommended book. Sorry, I replied to one person by mistake. The elements of style. Okay, strongly recommended that you get this book and read it, borrow it from a library or get yourself a copy. Ideally. Yeah. And I'm sure in today's day and world, a iconic book like this, if you really look hard, you might be able to find PDFs floating around online. But I recommend you buy the book. It's worth investing the money. Okay. Raymond and Murphy is also a great book for English grammar. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. So, but what are you going to do? A lot of people have not responded. What new thing are you going to do? Anubhav Garg is saying, I'm already doing most of it. I'll now watch a movie twice, and it takes a long time to watch the next one because you're pausing every dialogue and repeating. I mean, Anubhav, you don't need to do it. You already speak fairly well. But those who are struggling to speak, right, that's a part of the brain you're trying to activate. That, imagine I had this great vocabulary, I had this knowledge of grammar, but when I'm trying to speak, I'm not able to do it because there's a different part of the brain that needs to get trained and activated to speak English. Okay. So for that, this exercise of watching a movie twice and repeating the sentences really helped. Now I don't do it. I don't watch a movie twice anymore. Okay. But that time it really helped. Karan Shah is asking any specific book for law students. No, it's the same. I mean, if you want to read another book, I'll recommend. This is a book called How to Argue and Win Every Time by Gary Spence. This is a man who actually is a US lawyer, legendary, won every case he argued, never lost a criminal case. And he argued thousands of cases and never lost. That's crazy, right? So, and he wrote about it, that how to how to argue and win every time. That's a really phenomenal book on how to use language and how to use arguments. Like, phenomenal. Must read it. Okay, I will make a diary to write down new words in the form of sentences so that it gets registered. Yes, I am also thinking to make a small summary of a chapter after read it once with all new words that I come across. Okay, sure, good idea. I have got how to use grid algorithms, how to use algorithms. Great. Okay. Okay, great guys. Thank you so much. So, if you have any other feedback or anything to say, then say it now or forever hold your peace because I'm going to end the class now. Uh, What Power Made Easy by Norman Lewis. Highly recommended. What Power Made Easy. Yes, I did that book. It helped a lot. Fantastic book. Okay, most people never finish it. Make a habit of starting and finishing. Like your life depends on it. If you start watching a series on Amazon, will you stop before you watch everything? No. So like that, make sure you pick up these books and finish them, like at length. Okay, you have to finish. If you don't finish, you should have no peace. You have peace when you finish the book, like that. Okay. Can we have another session on time management? Sure, sure. We'll do that. No problem. We have a session on time management already. We'll do more. No worries. You can watch the old one also if you like. Okay, thank you everybody. What session would you like me to take next week? Any suggestions? What sessions can I take next week? Last question. Any suggestions? One session. What sessions would you like me to take next week? Nothing. Nobody. Okay. All right. Thank you. Take care. Good night and goodbye. Sorry, not good night. Have a great weekend and goodbye.